Hello everyone, today is a big day for value ships because today we are publishing our guidebook for EU Data Act. So being in the pricing world is quite exciting nowadays. Output-based pricing, success-based pricing, those are tactical things that you need to follow. Nevertheless, at the same time, we have some operational challenges coming from EU Data Act and law that we have to follow from September, I guess.
Yep, September 2025, so pretty soon there are the actual changes coming in. And basically the European Union as a regulator is going to change the pricing game a little bit, and we wanted to cover it in this short video.
Yes, as a pricing consultant, as a pricing boutique consultancy, we need to be ready for the change, because if we are not, we're gonna fail in the long term or maybe even in the short term. So what is the EU Data Act about? Why this is so important?
Sure. So basically, the EU Data Act is like the biggest regulatory change since the GDPR. Effectively, of course, there's the AI Act, but the EU Data Act is slightly more. Basically, this is about the key theme and the key idea of a regulator is to allow for a better protection of your own data as a customer, so to say. And while the previous regulations were quite okay for like B2C customers, this is somewhat more affecting the B2B world. Basically, right now where we are is like there's a lot of legal jargon, a lot of noise in the area. So that's why we decided to, we invested a lot in like legal fees, in actual legal fees, actual lawyers to, run through this. We put our pricing experts on it. And there are like 5 to 6 key themes, key changes that I believe you need to be aware of, so we can move to them.
So one can tell that this is definitely the biggest revolution in pricing space, or even in B2B SaaS space when it comes to legal. So what is the biggest change?
So the biggest change that is coming is effectively kind of the biggest pain point that's also changing our way of working is there are no more arbitrary price hikes, right? So basically, you will need a strong justification of why you're increasing the prices. In other words, back in the days, you could do something like this. We are underpriced, we are heavily underpriced, so let's increase prices just because. Now you need to have a certain catalog of reasons in your agreements with a customer. They have to be explicitly mentioned what are the reasons, like what are the feature changes that enable you the price increase, what are the terms when you can change the price, when you want to have some inflation clauses like cost of living adjustments. You can't write something like when the cost of living increases, you just need to apply the actual inflation data from like the European Central Bank, like very detailed information on what are the reasons for the price increase. So I'm not saying that you can't increase prices, but major product updates need to happen and then you can increase the price. In other words, you need to increase the value to actually get more of your pricing.
So value-based pricing times X, not only because AI is coming, but also because legal changes are coming. To put it in the very simple terms, before you could just increase the price. Nowadays, if you want to increase the price, there needs to be that justification, and the more value-based justification it is, the more successful you can be. But then, this is number one, but there are also some changes in the contracts.
Correct, yeah. Like first thing is like no more sided contracts. In other words,
one-sided contract.
No, yes, exactly. No more one-sided contracts. So basically, you can't have. So in theory, you always have to have the ability for a customer to negotiate the contract. Obviously, this won't happen, but technically, this ability has to be in the contracts. Basically, there is like this rule of reciprocity. This has to be fair for both parties. This is like one thing, and second thing is about like the timeline of changes. So basically, where lawyers agree, you need to have this like 30 days period, at least a notice period, to actually make things happen, right? So this is basically what is changed. It's like for organized companies, for the companies that have their legal right, this is not a major breakdown. But for the companies that were quite sloppy in the communication, they didn't have much experience in previous price increases. It just basically made the world a little bit more complicated for the vendors, for the SaaS vendors, for the product vendors, not only for the IoT, because there's a myth that this is only for IoT, in generally for the broader audience. At the same time, it is generally a good regulation for the customer, right? So to conclude, 30 days periods, no one-sided contracts, certain reciprocity in these contracts. This will actually have to happen.
So if you are preparing the price increase, or if you are preparing anything with regards to your pricing, make sure to look into your contract, because this change will need to happen in your contract. But not only contracts will be important, but actually your data protection, right? Pricing experts, yes. So the data protection, we call it in our report, in our guidebook, the data liberation. So end of information lockdown. So what about this? What information customers
very simple
need to have access to?
Exactly. The key idea is that the data. So look, the overall SaaS subscription world is like, technically you're renting this software, right?
Subscribing to it.
Yeah, you're subscribing, but you're kind of renting it. And previously there was a legal mess, especially for the US-based companies that are operating in Europe, that they own your data. No more. You own the data.
That was very comfy, right?
That was very comfy, yes. So now you own your data in the platform. In other words, what will happen is like you will need to have the easy export of the data. So CSV, XLS files, all these simple data downloads need to be in your basic packages. So you can't charge a premium for the data access. Like you probably remember, even we did this in our pricing work, that sometimes we put data access as a premium feature that you need to pay for, no more.
And this is quite important also for improving or actually making higher the barrier of exit, right? Because right now, if you want to change the software, your user needs to have an access, and it can download everything, and then you can just start using new software, right?
This is another layer of this is like kind of the yet another area of like vendor lock-ins. But with the data thing, with the kind of data protection thing, you have, first of all, they'll get easy data exports. Secondly, no more premium API packages. And this is quite messy, especially if you're thinking of AI vendors, right, that have some API cost involved in it. So basically, you can't have this like 3x data charge just to download it, right? For instance, you have the CRM platform, and you used to say, we can't. Okay, you decide to cancel, you decide to churn, so we'll delete all your data.
Yeah.
The data you can say that. But at the same time, you cannot use it as some kind of ransom, right? For not making the customer churn. So in other words, they will have to give you the ability to download the data somehow.
So in pricing world, we used to say that we are differentiating our products in order to increase average revenue per user, to make sure that people will either expand in time or will join the more expensive packages. And sometimes, or maybe very often, the differentiators were data access, stuff like this. This is no more, so you need to learn how actually to differentiate further in order to allow for expansion revenue. At the same time, we are talking about acquisition right now, but let's come back to the vendor locking, and let's talk a bit more about churn and what actually vendor locking means and what Data Act is bringing to us.
So basically, it kills the exit fees, so to say,
which were rare.
But still, especially in the enterprise level, they were existing, and you will even have the regulator says this as an obligation to help in transition. In other words, when you're actually going to the competitor, you need to help them move to the competitor. It's more that you need to do the heavy lifting, but you can't make any obstacles in it, right? So this is important, and also when there are price changes, you have the ability to cancel the contract. So this is tricky. So, back in the days, there was like, I had like 4 or 5 years contract. You could basically increase the price and they have to pay. Right now, it is that I can cancel because of that. So this is changing the game, basically allowing you to just switch vendors more easily. At the same time, and this is important in terms of cloud service, you have the interoperability between cloud providers. So I moved from Azure to AWS, and previously it was, we don't support AWS. Now you have to also support this, right? So the cloud operator won't be a problem, so to say.
So in the very simple terms, it's easier to switch, and the competition game is basically rising. It's like, it's reminding me the times when there were like different telco providers, and like if you want to change this telco provider, you can't keep your number like 10, 15 years ago. Right now, you can keep your number and you can go from one provider to the other provider. And then at that moment in history, like the competition was very fierce when, the law actually allowed for it. So this is crystal clear. Summarizing it a bit, value will be more important, competition will be arising, data accessibility will be important, and also vendor locking is no more. When?
Okay,
how much time do we have?
Let me just read this so I don't mess it up, okay? So September 25, the new contracts must comply. The September 26 products must be all designed for the portability, and this is where, so basically from September 2025, we already have this act happening. From September 2026, it comes to real life, and then you have this kind of switching period to the September 2027, where old contracts must comply, and then the switching fees will be banned. So, in other words, when we are publishing this, we have July and July 2026. And so we will have like 3 months roughly to prepare for like September 2026. And then we have a whole year for updating the contracts with existing customers, with doing this right. So there's a lot of time, but it has to be addressed.
But actually the time is now to start acting on it, right? You
Correct,
can't
yes.
postpone it. So any practical tips that you would have for companies?
Yeah, so just like a final words, just for the sake of time. First of all, I would recommend a pricing audit. But what I mean is not like, hey, are we priced in the proper way, but rather pricing/legal audit. In other words, create a catalog of reasons which you can use to justify the price increases. This is important. Second thing is the contract review. So what we have in the contracts, what we have in terms of clauses, are they one-sided, two-sided? This has to, so probably like lawyers going to earn a lot of money in like few next months, but it's like, this is how it is. If you have anything with your API plan, you need to kind of do something about it. So it might deteriorate your overall packaging, because sometimes your only differentiation was the API in the premium package. So probably this might, or the data export, this will be something that you need to focus on. There's obviously the team training problem that you need to prepare the enablers and all this stuff. And finally, have a clear roadmap and execution for this. I mean, I totally get this. This is yet another problem to solve, and I know that you have 150 other problems to solve right now. So sorry to say that, but this is this 151 problem.
But urgent one. So I think that this is very important, especially if you want to use pricing as a lever for growth of your business. For this, from the consulting standpoint, we've prepared for you the EU Data Act pricing guidebook that will be launching soon. If you need this, there will be a link under this video where you can have a look and download it, buy it from us. We spent tons of time with legal practitioners, with pricing enthusiasts and pricing professionals, and both of us also took a liberty to actually work on it. So if you're interested, make sure to get a copy and reach out if you have any other questions. Thank you very much, Maciek. Thank you very much, Ola, and see you soon.